Good morning from Sacred Space at Titania's Realm. The time is 8:27 a.m. on the 11th of September 2025. We'll just take a moment in memory of those who lost their lives in the New York Trade Center building in 2001, I think it was. Already forgetting. I haven't forgotten the trade tower centres and the loss of life, nor the calamitous wars that came after that, and the war against terrorism and the war in Iraq looking for weapons of mass destruction. It was faked. And what happened in Afghanistan. And what's happening across our globe right now. War, tyranny, lies, deception, vaccinations enforced upon the population, again under the guise of health, poisons in our food and air and water. It's amazing we wake up breathing it all and still find the courage to read wonderful stories on YouTube. The human spirit to continue to thrive and have hope and live in splendour of our own creating, no matter what, no matter who, is a bit astonishing at times, to be honest. It's a glorious morning here at excuse me. It's a glorious morning here at Pollen Park, Brisbane. The sun is shining. There's not a cloud in the sky, but it's very windy, which is playing a bit of havoc with my asthma, as you can see. Oddly, I felt fine before I started reading this. Before I started telling the story, but anyway, I mentioned health, and my psychosomatic body somatizes all the trauma and immediately acts out. Happens like that sometimes. So, but yeah, that's kind of got bones in it. Feel a bit raspy. Right, anyway, we will not submit to poor health. We will not submit to our governments. We will not submit to tyranny. We will not submit to weakness. We will carry on, and we will hold ourselves proud and strong and dignified, and let love of good, kind, honouring manifestations envelop us and strengthen us and gift us much needed peace. So on that note, we'll carry on with chapter 17 of The Hobbit. We're not far from reaching completion of this wonderful magical story. That may be completed today. If I get too raspy on it, I may have to come back tomorrow, but I suspect I'll push through and we'll finish it today. So I hope you enjoyed it as much as I have enjoyed reading it to you. These are the kinds of stories that when 2020 came about, gifted me wisdom and hope and strength, because embedded into my psyche, I remembered that even the smallest person can change the course of the world. And in this story, that smallest person was a little hobbit named Bilbo, who proved very resourceful, courageous and intelligent and wise indeed. And he had no idea what he was capable of at the beginning of the story, but nearing the end, he's discovered all sorts of amazing things about his own character, that if you'd sat him down for one of his 11's breakfasts back in Bag End under the hill, he would have said. Oh, don't be silly. That's ridiculous. I'm not capable of that. So you see, there's a thread running through the story reminding us that we are each pre-programmed in our psyche and our souls and our body, minds and spirits to bring all sorts of talents to the fore when needed and most necessary. And I certainly discovered that in 2021 to the current era as well. So it's been fun, it's been interesting, it's been stressful at times, but persevere, people of Earth, because the story's not over until you are, and you can choose to be the semicolon at times in life when life got very dark and despairing, and continue on with your story, perhaps in a new and unpreviously imagined way, and with good, kind people at your front and your back and your sides, holding you precious and cheering you on, and indeed cheering each other on, and gifting each other a sense of community and belonging and inclusiveness and tribe. And you'll find each other the ones who think like you and are on your team and, value and cherish and honour you. You'll find them. They're out there somewhere. You'll find them and they'll find you. And they'll come from all walks of life. They might come from different faiths or different cultures. So be open to the multiverse, because there's angels in the architecture spinning in infinity, and let us say, hallelujah. Chapter 17. The clouds burst. Next day the trumpets rang early in the camp. Soon a single runner was seen hurrying along the narrow path. At a distance he stood and hailed them, asking whether Thorin would now listen to another embassy, since new tidings had come to hand and matters were changed. That will be Dane, said Thorin when he heard. They will have got wind of his coming. I thought that would alter their mood. Bid them come, few in number and weaponless, and I will hear, he called to the messenger. About midday, the banners of the forest and the lake were seen to be borne forth again. A company of 20 was approaching. At the beginning of the narrow way, they laid aside sword and spear and came on towards the gate. Wondering, the dwarf saw that among them were both Bard and the Elven King, before whom an old man, wrapped in cloak and hood, bore a strong casket of iron-bound wood. Hail, Thorin, said Bard. Are you still of the same mind? My mind does not change with the rising and setting of a few suns, answered Thorin. Did you come to ask me idle questions? Still the elf host has not departed as I bade. Till then you come in vain to bargain with me. Is there then nothing for which you would yield any of your gold? Nothing that you or your friends have to offer? What of the Arkenstone of Thrain? Said he, and at the same moment the old man opened the casket and held aloft the jewel. The light leapt from his hand, bright and white in the morning. Then Thorin was stricken dumb with amazement and confusion. No one spoke for a long while. Thorin at length broke the silence, and his voice was thick with wrath. That stone was my father's and is mine, he said. Why should I purchase my own? But wonder overcame him, and he added, But how came you by the heirloom of my house, if there is need to ask such a question of thieves? We are not thieves, Bard answered. Your own we will give back in return for our own. How came you by it? Shouted Thorin in gathering rage. I gave it them, squeaked Bilbo, who was peeping over the wall by now in a dreadful fright. You? Cried Thorin, turning upon him and grasping him with both hands. You miserable hobbit, you undersized burglar, he shouted, at a loss for words, and he shook poor Bilbo like a rabbit. By the beard of Durin, I wish I had Gandalf here. Curse him for his choice of you. May his beard wither. As for you, I will throw you to the rocks, he cried, and lifted Bilbo in his arms. Stay, your wish is granted, said a voice. The old man with the casket threw aside his hood and cloak. Here is Gandalf, and none too soon, it seems. If you don't like my burglar, please don't damage him. Put him down and listen first to what he has to say. You all seem in league, said Thorin, dropping Bilbo on the top of the wall. Never again will I have dealings with any wizard or his friends. What have you to say, you descendant of rats? Dear me, said Bilbo. I am sure this is all very uncomfortable. You may remember saying that I may choose my 14th share? Perhaps I took it too literally. I have been told that dwarves are sometimes politer in word than in deed. The time was, all the same, when you seemed to think that I had been of some service. Descendant of rats, indeed. Is this all the service of you and your family that I was promised, Thorin? Take it that I have disposed of my share as I wished, and let it go at that. I will, said Thorin grimly, and I will let you go at that, and may we never meet again. Then he turned and spoke over the wall. "I am betrayed," he said. "It was rightly guessed that I could not forbear to redeem the Arkenstone, the treasure of my house. For it I will give a 1/14 share of the hoard in silver and gold, setting aside the gems. But that shall be accounted the promised share of this traitor, and with that reward he shall depart, and you can divide it as you will. He will get little enough, I doubt not. Take him, if you wish him to live, and no friendship of mine goes with him." "Get down now to your friends," he said to Bilbo, "or I will throw you down." "What about the gold and silver?" asked Bilbo. "That shall follow after, as can be arranged," said he. "Get down." "Until then we keep the stone," cried Bard. "You are not making a very splendid figure as king under the mountain," said Gandalf. "But things may change yet." "They may indeed," said Thorin, and already so strong was the bewilderment of the treasure upon him, he was pondering whether, by the help of Dain, he might not recapture the Arkenstone and withhold the share of the reward. Gold fever, baby boys and baby girls. It's a real thing. I had it once too. I was quite astonished. I really was quite astonished. But I had golden homes and prosperity stolen from me by knaves, some of them in my own family of origin, I might add. Cursed be their names forever and ever, even though I was spawned from their loins. Who robs their own children out of spite and envy and gifts it to criminals? My bloodlines, evil they were and no doubt still are wherever corner of dimensionality they got deposited to. But my gold now is spiritual gold. I made it out of their toxic wasteland and their shit and their spite and their envy of my power and their hatred and their putrescence and their pedophilia. I survived all of it, and I thrive in my own unique little weird ways. Sitting in my house all alone on a windy day, sunshine in all four directions, not a cloud in the sky, delighting in stories of old written by wise and tender men. There is great spiritual gold in that. Although liking and subscribing my channel might help me to actually earn my own living one day. Well, that's a fantasy, isn't it? But we aspire to co-create the gods' financial independence one fine day. That's why I started the silversmithing journey, to learn how to melt gold and silver. Well, I only learned how to melt gold recently. It's the same process as silver, but it's a different metal and behaves quite differently actually. It's quite astonishing. Learned a lot that day. Wasted a fair bit of gold, I suspect, but I bought it cheap in a second-hand shop, so whatever wastage, it was Not like I was wasting, gold bought in some exclusive jewellery store somewhere. But gold is gold is gold. Do you want to see what I transmuted it into? There's 2 on my silver cuff that I made, which it took some doing, getting the little gold butterflies to rivet on. And this is all I've got left of the scrap gold, which was part of old antique cuffs that I bought cheap in a second-hand store in January 2021, which started this journey. I think it was 2021. Yes, I'm pretty sure it was. And then some old earrings and some broken jewellery I had. This is what I've got left. A little round blob ready to transmute into a butterfly. A little butterfly to solder on as an embellishment. And this butterfly, but it's a bit misshapen. So I might, one wing's larger than the other, it's a bit distorted. So I might either file that wing back a bit, or I'll just melt it again and make another blob and make a new one. But anyway, it's only tiny little bits, not worth much really in the broad scheme of things. But it was the beginning of my learning to work with gold. Here's my workings with silver. I smashed down and textured a silver teaspoon bowl. I made a love heart, cut it out with my trusty disc cutter, which cost a shit ton of money back in the day, and there was some ugliness associated with the purchase of that. Oh, those people were awful to me. The Blend group, they all turned savage, I don't know why. I just asked a simple question about something, I wasn't being rude. Anyway, never mind. Time marches on, and if you find you try. Anyway, that little love heart got turned into a lovely pendant for my little friend down the road, little girl. And see, I still got some more scrap spoon bowls that I can beat down, smash and turn into something, or alternatively melt for when I do my casting of rings. So, I'm very happy and excited of all my achievements in the last few years. My only wish is I had more confidence and belief in myself as a young woman, because it was suggested to me when I was young and married to my dead shit husband, by the way. Or was that before I got married? I think it might have been even before. I got married at 19, so it's probably about 18. I had a friend, a Jewish jeweller, who was a friend of my mother's actually. She was trying to manipulate me, which is why I resisted. She was highly manipulative and exploitive. And you see, that was one thing I should not have resisted. Should have gone with it. Because I think the old man, his name was Oliver Goldsmith, was considering giving me an apprenticeship. Because he asked me what I wanted to do with my life. At the time I was studying law and failing at that miserably. It's off my head, quite frankly. I was at university and I was constantly being threatened with rape, and ugly things were written on the toilet door walls, and I was in student politics, and it was just, I wasn't prepared mentally for the level of hate and ugliness that would be thrown at me. So I dropped out of university and forfeited any chance of having a degree at that young age. It's a shame really, because I could have just given up on the law and just continued with my art subjects, which I was passing and doing well in. Can you believe I was studying religious studies and French and German, doing quite well? No, sorry, I didn't do German at university. It was French, modern literature, And then the second year when I went back, because I failed at my law subjects, I was deeply embarrassed about that. Oh, I'll give it another crack. And so that year I was studying religious studies. If I'd had a degree in religious studies, I could have gone on to train as a rabbi, couldn't I? Another thing I got robbed of by fate. Anyway, never mind. But anyway, this elderly gentleman who took a bit of a shine to me actually fancied my mother rotten. Married? Oh, shit. Men are such shits. And I was well aware of it, by the way. So I'm sitting there and he's asking me, what do you want to do with your life, Tanya? Oh, well, I'm kind of studying law and I'll probably stick at that. How do you feel about learning to make jewellery? My mother got terribly excited because it was her dream. Her dream. I said, oh no, that's not my dream, blah, blah, blah. I was an idiot. I didn't realise that he was testing the waters to see if I would say, oh yeah, I'd love to do that. But I had a lovely apprenticeship. I had a proper career for myself. Am I right, people of Earth? But you see, if people aren't upfront and direct with me and tell me what they want to do with me and what their intentions for me are, if I'm in agreement with it, how am I supposed to know? All the circling, sidewinding, going around vague parameters of nebulous vagueness. It's not how my brain works. So I didn't get it till later. I was like, that's what that was actually about. Anyway, then my mother, when we came here, when we migrated here in 1988, I was 23 with my husband and 2 babies. Then she suggested I take up silversmithing again. But again, it was for her benefit because she had a very successful market stall selling her costume jewellery, which I still have some remnants of it lying around by the goods. So much worthless crap it was that in the end couldn't do anything with it. Most of it had rotted. I had to chuck it out. So this is a fork I was playing with. And anyway, what was I saying? So then she was kind of kneeling on me, leaning on me, take up some, and I had my own business with my husband. I was working all the time, running my kids to and from school and working part-time in the business and under a lot of stress. I had no time to take up a hobby like silversmithing. And she even said it. She said, oh, and then you could make things for me and I could sell at the markets. And I thought, what, exploit me like you did when I was 14, make me paint your fucking house and give me no money and just treat me like some kind of miniature little fucking slave or poorly paid servant girl, and then mock and deride me to all your friends, which she did throughout my childhood. I thought, no, fuck you, not going to do that. Stood on my dignity again. So late 20, yes, I think it was 2020 I started the silversmithing journey, early 2020. So late 2019, I was still in recovery from the terrible gallbladder surgery in which I had actually very briefly died, only for a few seconds, but not long enough to need resuscitation or anything. But I knew I'd died because I was having this intense freaking experience, And then the nurse ran in and, are you okay? I'm like, woke up. I woke up and I was okay. It's like, how is that even possible? Don't ask me, I don't know. My brain does weird things under the effects of anaesthesia. But I'm certain that I did die briefly because I'd stopped breathing. Probably my sleep apnea, nothing too drastically serious, but enough to give me a God almighty awful fright because I just reached the gnosis that I wasn't going to breathe again. I was like, oh well, then I must be dead. And that's when I got interrupted in the death process. Hush. Anyway, so late 2019, that occurred on 25th of June. I'd been reclaiming my life after that near-death experience, because I realised I'm running out of time here, and there's so much about life I still don't know, apart from the fuckery of men being exploited and using and abusing, faking love and faking friendship, which sends me into paroxysms of rage to this day. But anyway, it is what it is. But I thought, well, what shall I do to reclaim my life and possibly find a loving partner? I have to put myself out in the world. You don't meet people sitting at home reading The Hobbit, unless you're going for that sordid fucking internet dating where you're just treated like a punch bowl of meat, and it's just, I won't do it, refuse. It's beneath my dignity. It's another reason I have trouble meeting people, because most people meet on the internet these days. But the few times I sort of forayed into it about 10 years ago, attracted creep after creep after creep, so I thought, no, it's not for me. Don't want to attract creeps. So what happened was I thought, well, I'll go to drumming. This ad for drumming came up. I'll give that a go. That sounds like a pleasant way to pass the afternoon, once a month on a Sunday. So I did that. I was still going to ecstatic dance, which I really loved. And late, about November-ish, 2019, actually happened at ecstatic dance. I've been putting out prayers for the multiverse, the Holy One and all manifestations to assist me. I said I can't continue life alone, struggling on the pension, with no money and no skills and no support, no man and no family. I mean, I did have my daughter in those days, but she'd come back from, the UK, and she was already a bit distant and things were not quite right there. We were still, maintained contact until 2023. But anyway, a segue. So I put out prayers. I asked the gods to assist me, to help me, find a way to function in this world and survive it. And COVID came, and I was like, right, well, one more thing, we're going to have to survive, people of Earth. And while everyone else was running around with their heads cut off, rooster boosting themselves stupid because they thought that would stave off death in some magical kind of way, which is not how it works, people of Earth. Really isn't, and I knew that. Thank the gods that I knew that. Probably had a bit of tweaking in my astral plane and my dream state from my angels, because that's how they tweak me when I'm out for the count. But anyway, I had wisdom gifted to me to hold my line. And so while everyone else was compliant and submissive and going along with draconian and quite insane directions, 6 metres apart, wearing cloth masks like wet, bacteria-laden nappies glued to your face, and all that insanity, people of Earth. Insanity, it really is and always will be insanity. And, Tanya, if you don't do this, you're going to die. What about your bad lungs? Oh, and in the form of fake love interest. I worry about you going to die. Trying to coerce me into injecting myself with that bioweapon. I said, are you out of your mind? Well, what do you mean, Tanya? I said, everybody dies. Sooner or later, your time will come. Probably not today, probably not tomorrow either, but when it's your time, it's your time. What do you mean? I said, do you know how many times I've already died in this lifetime? In late 2019, or I think it was 2020 when I had that conversation with him, actually, around about March, April. I said, I've already died 12 times. We're up to 16 now. Well, the last one wasn't technically a near death, but it was pretty bloody close. If I'd smashed my head on the vice instead of catching my arm, I would have been cactus, alone here in my house. No one to look after me. Jesus, he even threw that in my face. Oh, if you get sick, there's no one to look after you, and you're all alone. Like really pushing that button too. I hadn't realised he was a fucking closet. Not all that closeted actually. Sadist. Trying to feed into all my fears and get me to button myself stupid so that I too should die of some horrible adverse reaction. Fuck off. When I die, it'll be in my own pristine body. Very likely by my own will, quite frankly, because I'm not suiting this body to anyone else. Had that dreadful flu about 8 weeks ago, which was quite dreadful. Everyone was very ill with it. I didn't even go near a feckin' doctor. I was determined. You live or you die. It's that simple. We're brainwashed to be weak and, get all sorts of medical interventions. Half of them aren't even bloody necessary. They're just peddled to us by Big Pharma. And I'm not just talking about the COVID vaccines, but, 15 years of fucking psych meds that I thought I had to have to keep myself alive turned me into a drooling, shuffling automaton zombie. So I know what I'm talking about when I say, no, hell no, I won't go. Won't go along with that, won't go along with that. But I must admit, that last flu's left me a bit weakened. I'm not quite right. I can see it. And I'm not too bad in the mornings, but by night time I'm like dragging my sorry ass through. It's like... But anyway, at 60 years old, I have fought battles, spiritual, physical, mental, financial, you name it, I fought it. And I will not be submitting to anyone else's ideas of what they think is good for me. I will just live my life in freedom by my own willpower and hold my own line. And I recommend everyone else do the same. It's your life, no one else's. If you die, you die. At least die in your own body autonomy, pristine, as much as possible. Sometimes you need major interventions. Like one of my dear friends in the music scene, suddenly got cancer and needed major interventions with chemotherapy. Anyway, he's doing well. So I'm not saying that you shouldn't go to a doctor and you shouldn't have medical interventions. I'm just saying, just be suspicious of anything that becomes a fashion plate or a trend and starts being browbeaten at you and trying to bribe you with football tickets and donuts. Donuts! When I heard that, I was like, this is beyond insane. This is something out of Joseph Heller's Catch-22 or Brave New World or 1984. I just thought it's not normal. It wasn't normal, people of Earth. But people were terrified, and when you're terrified, you think you'll do anything to keep yourself and your family. So even my now former friend begging me, I lie in bed worrying about you at night. I said, why would you worry about me? Got a wife, worry about your own things. Didn't occur to me. It's trying to lure me into this false sense that he loved me and cared about me. By the God, had me fooled for a while too. But I didn't get fooled that way until after I started dancing at the Brooklyn Standard. I must have got vulnerable somehow, or I don't even understand what happened. How I fell in love with it. Traitor it was. We should throw him off a wall too. Thorin and I are like-minded like that. Well, anyway, he's got pterodactyl face now, and his wife, and whatever else is going on in his little harem. God, Didn't think he was that kind of a man, actually. He was being very honouring and respectful of me. There you go. Had me fooled. Had me fooled. But fool me once, fool me twice, fool me 3 times. Boom, bang, boom, baby. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Having said that, I do understand. Men are men and women are women. We live in very dangerous, scary times. And people think they're going to die at any given moment because of this bullshit inseminated into their bodies by their own government. And, the younger people, because that friend is younger than me, and most of his group of friends are all in their early 40s, They're terrorised. They're terrorised people. Terrorised people will do anything. Throw anyone under a bus. Gus. And they'll fuck and they'll use and they'll abuse because it's kind of a war. In wars, people fuck. How do I know this? Daughter of people who survived Nazi Germany. People fuck, have no morals, they use and they abuse and they fuck and fuck and fuck, and they're not particularly fussy about who they fuck, just as long as someone's just greets them with open arms and open legs, as my ex Courtney used to refer to it, any holes of gold. That's how he perceived women, which is why I ended that relationship. But anyway, in a crisis, on the coalface of an actual war, people throw away their morals and their values and disrespect and dishonour women in their lives and then wonder why the women walk away. Maybe other women wouldn't have walked away. Other women would have kept playing the long game and grovelled and slathered and sullied themselves just for the sake of having a little end of a knob planted in them occasionally. But I'm not that kind of a woman. I need more from life than knobs. I need art and literature and music and genuine care and respect and honour. And I'm worried about you. Where is he now? Fucking someone else, no doubt. And do I care? Not really. Not really. Deserved better than that. Right, why have I gone on that rant? Oh yes, because as I was saying, I prayed for my beautiful life to be surrounded by a tribe of people who genuinely love and respect and honour me and care about me, like really care about me, as in care as in want to keep me safe, not inoculated, but keep me in my own body, mind and spirit, with my own heart and intellect and emotions and coherence. That kind of safety, not rattling my cage, throwing other women in my face like all my previous love, actual sexual partners or suitors have done. That's twisted, isn't it? It's twisted to do that. Well, when this one started that gameplay, I was like, it's a bit odd, because aren't you supposed to be married? I still can't quite figure it out, Was he actually even married? Never got to meet the wife, which I suggested. It was time we met. Wanted to eyeball this woman that is his wife, that he's pretends to be so loyal to, but really isn't. I don't think there was a wife. I really don't. Just saying. But anyway, do I sound paranoid and suspicious? Yes. Is there a reason for that? Oh yes. Do I really care at the end of the day? No. Because a real man who genuinely loved me would have treated me better, taken me out and explained his situation a bit better and was honest with me and caring, gentle and kind, not mocking and deriding me in public gigs. You understand. I tell you what, he's very fortunate we live in contemporary modern society and I'm not actually Boadicea, because we all know what Boadicea would have done to him that night. By the gods. But this is the thing, when you're dealing with people who've been obliterated out of their own souls by toxins, spike proteins and amyloid things growing into them, you're not getting human, actual human, genuine, authentic, caring behaviours anymore. They're already part bot. They've seeded their souls. They've lost their humanness and their ability to love and show honour and respect. And it's a fucking tragedy. So on that level I can kind of forgive because it's not their fault. It's not their fault. Some of them did it willingly because they were brainwashed and thought it was somehow going to gift them extra life. Jesus. Not Jesus, but you know what I mean. And some of them were just greedy and evil and salacious. Some of them genuinely thought they were going to somehow protect their families, and those are the people I forgive, the ones that were genuinely duped. It's a strange world we live in, very strange world. We'll see what happens when 3i Atlas gets here, if it's not another fake distraction created by NASA and trust the scientists. Just suspect it very well may be. Oh, on another note, did you see the Congress, the American Congress discussion about UAPs yesterday? It's getting very interesting. They've acknowledged about the secret black projects hiding everything, the government hiding everything. Now they're asking to subpoena certain figures. I wish they would. That would be interesting. Get the truth out at last. Because you can't have a safe society or planet for all human beings, sentient beings, if you live in the shadows of lies and deception. It rots and eats away at you. The only way to go forth in life for any soul, anyone, animal, bird, is to live in your own truth, integrity, honour, and as much as is humanly possible, because as I said, there are some interventions that become necessary, like when I had chunks of flesh sliced out of me because they were cancerous. Body autonomy. Body autonomy. In your own beingness, isness. Your business is your isness. No one else's. No man, woman or child owns your body, but you. You can share it about as much as you like with anyone you like. It's not my problem, not my circus, or not my monkey. But when it comes to protecting your own inner and physical space, that is a job only you can do, people of Earth. That's what they forgot to tell you with their mask holing and ass holing. Motherfuckers. Right. Are you fighting, you two birdie boys? I'm just giving a rant-tan-tan and a lecture on YouTube about body autonomy, and you're trying to kill each other in the background. What's all that about, actually? Look at them. They're so cute, the two of them. They really are. Can you see them? Little bows on the bottom. Kermies above. Like butter wouldn't melt in their little beaks. There we go. Right, let's complete the story, because Rati's coming soon, and my Rati's coming to clean. Right. Sometimes I go on these little rants, and you have to excuse me, because they're heartfelt and they're genuine, from a space of deep, deep love for all my Homo sapiens and the ghastly horror we've all endured in recent years. But some of us, like myself, have endured ghastly horrors all our lives. So we were ready when this came upon us. Others, it came as a great shock. You know, some of you that lived entitled, reasonably privileged lives, you just didn't see it coming. That's why you've got to listen to the ones that live on the fringes and can see it all playing out, all unravelling. We're your early warning system. But some of you refuse to listen to me. Again, it's a tragedy. Right, here we go. Some of you were never able to receive the warnings because I was shadow banned on all social media platforms by evil and incompetence and negligence and anti-humanism, which is on those previous CEOs to bear the responsibility for that. Silencing of people's truth, a dishonour and an evil beyond words. Could have been life-saving for someone. Even if I'd only saved one person, it would have been worth it to just listen to my screams of directions, to just say no. Anyway, it's a beautiful day, and we must carry on and co-create a beautiful life out of the bones and ashes of the old one. We can do it because we're like phoenixes, we're humans. We can co-create, we can build together, but it takes a real love and real courage and real honour and authentic people, as I say, who have your back, your sides and your front, and who never sway and who never fall away and never let you down, ever. Those are the people I want in my tribe. I don't have a very big tribe, with very few close friends, people that I trust, and even then I watched them flobberize and flail during the last 5 years. That was very terrifying too. But the ones who really love me have stayed loyal and true, because bottom line, they knew I was right, actually. They do. They know that. They don't like it, but they know it. And that is the difference sometimes. The life-saving difference. All right. Where were we? And so Bilbo was swung down from the wall and departed with nothing for all his trouble, except the armour which Thorin had given him already. Isn't that outrageous? Used and exploited. I know what that feels like. Robbed of homes and stability, financial stability, by traitors and dogs and bloodless curs and soulless hellhounds and psychic vampires. But I'm grateful for that experience because it prepared me for what was yet to come in 2022, the current era. Prepared me, made me very, very aware of people's true hearts, minds, souls, and agenda. Right. More than one of the dwarves in their hearts felt shame and pity at his going. Farewell, he cried to them. We may meet again as friends. He's so sweet, my little Bilbo. He reminds me of someone. Never mind. Be off, called Thorin. You have mail upon you, which was made by my folk, and is too good for you. It cannot be pierced by arrows, but if you do not hasten, I will string your miserable feet. So be swift. Not so hasty, said Bard. We will give you until tomorrow. At noon we will return and see if you have brought from the hoard the portion that is to be set against the stone. If that is done without deceit, then we will depart, and the elf host will go back to the forest. In the meanwhile, farewell. With that they went back to the camp, but Thorin sent messengers by Roark, telling Dain of what had passed and bidding him come with wary speed. What's going on, my boys? Violence is not tolerated at sacred space unless I'm perpetrating it. Just saying. I'm joking about that. There will be no violence at sacred space. That's why it's sacred space, innit? To have some safe place to lay your head at night and dream the impossible dream and co-create a beautiful life with the gods if no other mortal can co-create it with you. It comes down to that sometimes. It truly does. That day passed and the night. The next day the wind shifted west and the air was dark and gloomy. The morning was still early when a cry was heard in the camp. Runners came in to report that a host of dwarves had appeared round the eastern spur of the mountain and was now hastening to Dale. Dain had come. He had hurried on through the night and so had come upon them sooner than they had expected. Each one of his folk was clad in a hauberk of steel mail that hung to his knees, and his legs were covered with hose of a fine and flexible metal mesh, the secret of whose making was possessed by Dain's people. The dwarves are exceedingly strong for their height, but most of these were strong even for dwarves. In battle, they wielded heavy, two-handled mattocks, but each of them had also a short broadsword at his side and a round shield slung at his back. Their beards were forked and plaited and thrust into their belts. Their caps were of iron, and they were shod with iron, and their faces were grim. Trumpets called men and elves to arms. Before long the dwarfs could be seen coming up the valley at a great pace. They halted between the river and the eastern spur, but a few held on their way, and crossing the river, drew near the camp. And there they laid down their weapons and held up their hands in signs of peace. Bard went out to meet them, and with him went Bilbo. "We are sent from Dain, son of Nain," they said when questioned. "We are hastening to our kinsmen in the mountain, since we learn that the kingdom of old is renewed. But who are you that sit on the plain as foes before defended walls?" This, of course, in the polite and rather old-fashioned language of such occasions, meant simply, "You have no business here. We are going on, so make way, or we shall fight you." They meant to push on between the mountain and the loop of the river, for the narrow land there did not seem to be strongly guarded. Bard, of course, refused to allow the dwarfs to go straight on to the mountain. He was determined to wait until the gold and silver had been brought out in exchange for the Arkenstone, for he did not believe that this would be done if once the fortress was manned with so large and warlike a company. They had brought with them a great store of supplies, for the dwarfs can carry very heavy burdens, and nearly all of Dain's folk, in spite of their rapid march, bore huge packs on their backs in addition to their weapons. They would stand a siege for weeks, and by that time yet more dwarfs might come, and yet more, for Thorin had many relatives. Also, they would be able to reopen and guard some other gate, so that the besiegers would have to encircle the whole mountain, and for that they had not sufficient numbers. These were, in fact, precisely their plans, for the raven messengers had been busy between Thorin and Dain. But for the moment the way was barred, so after angry words the dwarf messengers retired, muttering in their beards. Bard then sent messengers at once to the gate, but they found no gold or payment. Arrows came forth as soon as they were within shot, and they hastened back in dismay. In the camp all was now astir, as if for battle, for the dwarves of Dain were advancing along the eastern bank. "Fools!" laughed Bard, "to come thus beneath the mountain's arm. They do not understand war above ground, whatever they may know of battle in the mines. There are many of our archers and spearmen now hidden in the rocks upon their right flank. Dwarf mail may be good, but they will soon be hard put to it. Let us set on them now from both sides, before they are fully rested. But the Elven King said, "Long will I tarry ere I begin this war for gold. The dwarves cannot pass us unless we will, or do anything that we cannot mark. Let us hope still for something that will bring a reconciliation. Our advantage in numbers will be enough, if in the end it must come to unhappy blows." The peacemaker, our Elven King. I like that. I like elves. But he reckoned without the dwarves. The knowledge that the Arkenstone was in the hands of the besiegers burned in their thoughts. Also, they guessed the hesitation of Bard and his friends, and resolved to strike while they debated. Suddenly, without a signal, they sprang silently forward to attack. Bows twanged and arrows whistled. Battle was about to be joined. Still more suddenly a darkness came on with dreadful swiftness. A black cloud hurried over the sky. The winter thunder on a wild wind rolled roaring up and rumbled in the mountain, and lightning lit its peak. And beneath the thunder another darkness could be seen whirling forward, but it did not come with the wind. It came from the north like a vast cloud of birds, so dense that no light could be seen between their wings. "Halt!" cried Gandalf, who appeared suddenly and stood alone, with arms uplifted between the advancing dwarves and the ranks awaiting them. "Halt!" he called in a voice like thunder, and his staff blazed forth with a flash like the lightning. "Dread has come upon you all. Alas, it has come more swiftly than I guessed. The goblins are upon you. Bolg, son of Azog, Bolg of the north is coming, O Dain, whose father you slew in Moria. Pardon me. Behold, the bats are above his army like a sea of locusts. They ride upon wolves, and wargs are in their train." Amazement and confusion fell upon them all. Even as Gandalf had been speaking, the darkness grew. The dwarves halted and gazed at the sky. The elves cried out with many voices. "Come," called Gandalf. "There is yet time for counsel. Let Dain, son of Nain, come swiftly to us." So began a battle that none had expected, and it was called the Battle of Five Armies, and it was very terrible. Upon one side were the goblins and the wild wolves, and upon the other were elves and men and dwarves. This is how it fell out. Ever since the fall of the great goblin of the misty mountains, the hatred of their race for the dwarves had been rekindled to fury. Messengers had passed to and fro between all their cities, colonies and strongholds, for they resolved now to win the dominion of the north. Tidings they had gathered in secret ways, and in all the mountains there was a forging and an army. Then they marched and gathered by hill and valley, going ever by tunnel or under dark, until around and beneath the great mountain Gunabad of the north, where was their capital, a vast host was assembled, ready to sweep down in time of storm, unawares, upon the south. Then they learned of the death of Smaug, and joy was in their hearts, and they hastened night after night through the mountains, and came thus at last on a sudden from the north, hard on the heels of Dain. Not even the ravens knew of their coming until they came out in the broken lands which divided the lonely mountain from the hills behind. How much Gandalf knew cannot be said, but it is plain that he had not expected this sudden assault. This is the plan that he made in council with the Elven King and with Bard and with Dain, for the Dwarf Lord now joined them. The goblins were the foes of all, and at their coming all other quarrels were forgotten. Their only hope was to lure the goblins into the valley between the arms of the mountain, and themselves to man the great spurs that struck south and east. Yet this would be perilous if the goblins were in sufficient numbers to overrun the mountain itself, and so attack them also from behind and above. But there was not time to make any other plan, or to summon any help. Soon the thunder passed, rolling away to the southeast, but the bat cloud came flying lower over the shoulder of the mountains and whirled above them, shutting out the light and filling them with dread. A bit like Three-Eyed Atlas, isn't it? Nothing like a cosmic unknown quantity to make humans unite across the globe, bring joy and peace and love to each other, because in the face of complete annihilation, ultimately we only have each other. It's no accidents in the universe, people are there. No accidents. God is great. If there was a God. There certainly is a cosmic force that guides and instructs us at times and brings us through, if we remain pure of heart, of honouring and worthy. Maybe that's just another fairy story too. Didn't help the people in the last Holocaust or any of the other wars since, or this current war. For it truly is a spiritual war, people of Earth. I've been fighting it since I first drew breath on this planet. surrounded by actual fucking pedophiles and their enablers. I've been fighting a long, long time. So excuse me if every now and then I get a bit overwrought and hysterical and tired and throw wobblies and tantrums and gather my forces and go to war again, because it's all I know. It's all I've ever known. Possibly across other lifetimes as well. No accidents in the universe. None. That's why I'm distraught that I thought once I found a real love, and that too was a deception. Both cages just got blown down by the strong wind. I hope they're not broken, because that one was still paying off by the gods. Well, there you go. Lucky the birdies weren't in it when that happened, isn't it? Well, lucky Mummy kept you inside today. Could have been blown over and possibly killed. So you see, protected it again. Fortunate and protected. To the mountain, called Bard. To the mountain. Let us take our places while there is yet time. Can't believe it. Both cages blew down there. Oh, macaroons. Well, on this, I have to check later if they're damaged. I hope they're not. I'm just going to go into denial right now. Denial is long over in Africa. Anyway. On the southern spur, in its lower slopes, and in the rocks at its feet, the elves were set. On the eastern spur were men and dwarves. But Bard, and some of the nimblest of men and elves, climbed to the height of the eastern shoulder to gain a view to the north. Soon they could see the lands before the mountain's feet, black with a hurrying multitude. Ere long the vanguard swirled round the spur's end and came rushing into Dale. These were the swiftest wolf riders, and already their cries and howls rent the air afar. A few brave men were strung before them to make a feint of resistance, and many there fell before the rest drew back and fled to the other side. As Gandalf had hoped, the goblin army had gathered behind the resisted vanguard and poured now in rage into the valley, driving wildly up between the arms of the mountain, seeking for the foe. Their banners were countless, black and red. The colours of fascism, we might add. And they came on like a tide in fury and disorder. It was a terrible battle, the most dreadful of all Bilbo's experiences, and the one which at the time he hated most, just to say it was the one he was most proud of, and most fond of recalling long afterwards, although he was quite unimportant in it. Actually, I may say, he put on his ring early in the business and vanished from sight, if not from all danger. A magic ring of that sort is not a complete protection in a goblin charge, nor does it stop flying arrows and wild spears, but it does help in getting out of the way, and it prevents your head from being specially chosen for a sweeping stroke by a goblin swordsman. The elves were the first to charge. Their hatred for the goblins is cold and bitter. Their spears and swords shone in the gloom with a gleam of chill flame. So deadly was the wrath of the hands that held them. As soon as the host of their enemies was dense in the valley, they sent against it a shower of arrows, and each flickered as it fled, as if with stinging fire. Behind the arrows 1,000 of their spearmen leapt down and charged. Their yells were deafening. The rocks were stained black with goblin blood. Just as the goblins were recovering from the onslaught and the elf charge was halted, there rose from across the valley a deep-throated roar, with cries of Moira and Dane, Dane. The dwarves of the Iron Hills plunged in, wielding their mattocks upon the other side, and beside them came the men of the lake with long swords. Panic came upon the goblins, and even as they turned to meet this new attack, the elves charged again with renewed numbers. Already many of the goblins were flying back down the river to escape from the trap, and many of their own wolves were turning upon them and rending the dead and the wounded. The victory seemed at hand when a cry rang out on the heights above. Goblins had scaled the mountain from the other side, and already many were on the slopes above the gate, and others were streaming recklessly, heedless of those that fell screaming from cliff and precipice, to attack the spurs from above. Each of these could be reached by paths that ran down from the main mass to the mountain in the centre, and the defenders had too few to bar the way for long. The victory now vanished from hope. They had only stemmed the first onslaught of the black tide. Day drew on. The goblins gathered again in the valley. There a host of wargs came ravening, and with them came the bodyguard of Bolg, goblins of huge size with scimitars of steel. Soon actual darkness was coming into the stormy sky. One moment. Carry on. I'm going to carry on reading that. Okay. I like your big job. It's very pretty. Thank you. It's pretty colour. I just set Righty in because the door was locked. So, right, where were we? Soon actual darkness was coming into a stormy sky, while still the great bats swirled about the heads and ears of elves and men, all fastened vampire-like on the stricken. Now Bard was fighting to defend the eastern spur, and yet giving slowly back, and the elf lords were at bay about their king upon the southern arm, near to the watch-post on Ravenhill. Suddenly there was a great shout, and from the gate came a trumpet call. They had forgotten Thorin. Part of the wall, moved by levers, fell outward with a crash into the pool. Out leapt the king under the mountain, and his companions followed him. Hood and cloak were gone. They were in shining armour, and red light leapt from their eyes. Pardon me. In the gloom, the great dwarf gleamed like gold in a dying fire. Rocks were hurled down from on high by the goblins above, but they held on, leapt down to the fall's foot and rushed forward to battle. Wolf and rider fell or fled before them. Thorin wielded his axe with mighty strokes, and nothing seemed to harm him. To me, elves and men, to me, O my kinfolk, he cried, and his voice shook like a horn in the valley. Down, heedless of order, rushed all the dwarves of Dain to his help. Down too came many of the lake men, for Bard could not restrain them, and out upon the other side came many of the spearmen of the elves. Once again the goblins were stricken in the valley, and they were piled in heaps till Dale was dark and hideous with their corpses. The wargs were scattered, and Thorin drove right against the bodyguard of Bolg, but he could not pierce their ranks. Already behind him, among the goblin dead, lay many men and many dwarves, and many a fair elf that should have lived yet long ages merrily in the wood. And as the valley widened, his onset grew ever slower. His numbers were too few. His flanks were unguarded. Soon the attackers were attacked, and they were forced into a great ring, facing every way, hemmed all about with goblins and wolves returning to the assault. The bodyguard of Bolg came howling against them, and drove in among their ranks like waves upon cliffs of sand. Their friends could not help them, for the assault from the mountain was renewed with redoubled force, and upon either side men and elves were being slowly beaten down. On all this, Bilbo looked with misery. He had taken his stand on Ravenhill among the elves, partly because there was more chance of escape from that point, and partly, with the more tookish part of his mind, because if he was going to be in a last desperate stand, he preferred on the whole to defend the Elven king. Gandalf too, I may say, was there, sitting on the ground as if in deep thought, preparing, I suppose, some last blast of magic before the end. That did not seem far off. 'Twill not be long now, thought Bilbo, before the goblins win the gate, and we are all slaughtered or driven down and captured. Really, it is enough to make one weep, after all one has gone through. I would rather old Smaug had been left with the wretched treasure than that these vile creatures should get it, and poor old Bombur and Balin and Fili and Kili and all the rest come to a bad end, and Bard too, and the lake men, and the merry elves. Misery me! I have heard songs of many battles, and I have always understood that defeat may be glorious. It seems very uncomfortable, not to say distressing. I wish I was well out of it. The clouds were torn by the wind, and a red sunset slashed the west. Seeing the sudden gleam in the gloom, Bilbo looked round. He gave a great cry. He had seen a sight that made his heart leap. Dark shapes, small yet majestic against the distant glow. "The eagles! The eagles!" he shouted. "The eagles are coming!" Bilbo's eyes were seldom wrong. The eagles were coming down the wind, line after line, in such a host as must have gathered from all the eyries of the north. "The eagles! The eagles!" Bilbo cried, dancing and waving his arms. If the elves could not see him, they could hear him. Soon they too took up the cry, and it echoed across the valley. Many wondering eyes looked up, though as yet nothing could be seen except from the southern shoulders of the mountain. "The eagles!" cried Bilbo once more. But at that moment a stone, hurtling from above, smote heavily on his helm, and he fell with a crash and knew no more. Right, we come to chapter 18, the return journey. We have 2 chapters left, not very long ones, but I'm going to leave you in suspense and come back later to finish the story. So have a beautiful day, wherever you are on planet Earth, all sentient beings and all interdimensional entities and all humans, regardless of culture, creed or nation. Let us be together in unity in these dark and turgid and rather weird times. When is 3-Eye Atlas supposed to arrive? I think they said late October. And what other nonsense can our media and our scientists produce to keep us distracted from reality? But here at Titania's realm, we live in other people's mythical realities and dimensionalities, and it's quite lovely at times. Quite lovely. Other times a bit humbling and chilling. But it is what it is, people of Earth. Wherever you are, even though it's very windy today and it's blown over my bird cages, have a lovely day, and remember to never ever let the bastards grind you, me, us down. Bye for now, planet Earth.